We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
What do you think about the Laker team now?
You follow the box scores of the games every day?
Just the Lakers.
You're kidding. That is really a compliment. I was pleased to see you smile at the top of our show because once the game starts, you have a game face. You don't smile much out there.
I don't think you have to do things for money anymore.
Correct.
What's up, Laker fans? Welcome to the Laker Film Room podcast. I'm Pete, joined by Darius. And forgive us, Kareem. We're going to push him back a day, our conversation on him, because LeBron just went crazy in yesterday's game versus Germany, one of the warm-ups for the Olympics. Him and AD have been tremendous throughout this warm-up period, D. And we wanted to talk a little Team USA and LeBron and AD and just sort of the building a team in this new era with JJ Redick as coach around the two stars. So tell me, D, what have you seen from LeBron, who's leading the team in points? Anthony Davis has blocked more shots than everybody else combined. They've just been tremendous.
Yeah, it turns out LeBron James and Anthony Davis are still pretty good and justified as being viewed as two of the top 10 to 15 players in not only the NBA, but in the world, really, right? Like the NBA is the best league in the world and both made the All-NBA team. AD was also first-team All-Defense, and so he's clearly one of the elite players, and they've both sort of carried over what were fantastic regular seasons to Team USA. The thing that is even more intriguing to me, Pete, and I'm sure people are going to be tired of talking about this over the next week or 2 weeks or however long the Team USA run starts, especially if he continues to play this role, but LeBron, unbelievable. He's just an unreal player. And this version of LeBron, I think, is the epitome of what you'd want for him to be able to do on the Lakers, which is the guy who continues to pick his spots, but in the biggest moments of these games can use all of the tools available to him, which are plentiful still, and more tools than any 39-year-old player has ever had on a basketball court, to be able to influence wins and losses. And against South Sudan and against Germany, I thought his power and his ability to still be a one-on-one player against a variety of different types of defenders was elite. And the team, much like the Team USA, much like the Lakers, go as LeBron goes. And when he turns it up, they are right there with him. And I think when AD turns it up too, he shifts the game in a way that is just unreal. But LeBron, I think, is that first train at the lead of all of the other trains that are following behind.
He's so inspiring to be doing this at this point. There's always a hierarchical nature of these Olympic Games in terms of it's a lot of the best players on the planet and who gets the ball at the end of games and all that is always interesting. And to see him still as the king at this point of his career is just unprecedented, and it redefines expectations. I always think of that Kobe tweet, his last tweet of pushing the game forward. It's like, never again can somebody say that what he's doing is impossible because he's done it. But there's a lot about what he's doing right now that for much of my life would have been considered like, no, nobody you can't do that at that point of your career. Like we've seen players that have reached this point, but that's been right as they've been sputtering off the floor to end their careers. He's still incredible, and it's one of the reasons why the Lakers have a lot to work with and start with. We'll talk AD in a bit, but what struck me certainly has been the power game of LeBron, but also his level of anticipation and ability to read is just, he's basically Neo in the Matrix after he figures out who he is, and he's just he's seeing the game so slowly. And so he still has a great fastball in terms of speed and his ability to get in the air, but it's not what it once was. But where he's really beating guys is he'll start a speed cut. Say he's operating off the ball and he sees the weakness in the defense, the opening, and he's hitting that hole faster than anybody because he's anticipating it before anybody else. And so when you combine that, and he's got a shoulder pass to guy and has a level of advantage with the ability to use shoulder strikes and his body and size to power through guys, he's winning on the ground in ways where it's a combination of his mind and still very impressive physical tools, even if they aren't what they once were. And so that ability, like you were saying, to kind of move from different worlds on offense to being like, I'm a cutter on this play, I'm going to come off a screen and hit a three on this play. Now I'm in the post. Oh, I got Dennis Schroeder on me. I'm going to isolate on him and just bully ball him and back him down into the rim. I'm going to be a screener on this play. I'll be a hub where I'm going to hit, Steph coming off of a screen while I'm in triple threat position at the top of the key. That and his ability to make reads in all those situations is why he's endured in a way that no player ever has.
He's such an anticipatory player, Pete, and the cutting to me is one of the things that I don't think is appreciated enough from a player who is seemingly always looked at as like an on-ball player, like someone who is so good at being a shot creator for himself or others, and someone who is often the guy with the ball in his hands making the decision. His cuts and his ability to read and take a quick step forward as he's catching the ball in order to build up the momentum. I liken it to, like, everyone's seen this in like their favorite cartoon or action movie where there's a pilot who's trying to escape and he's in the plane, and way up forward ahead of him, there are these walls that are closing in, and the pilot decides, oh, I've got to turn this way and turn that way and go on my side in order to just escape the walls. So much of that is reading something way far behind, right? Like, oh, I got to step on the gas now. And LeBron brilliantly does that as a cutter from the slot. He does it from the top of the key, where he knows that the next read is for the ball to come to him because of the way that the defense is shifting. And he doesn't wait to catch the ball before he starts his move. He's like a running back who is catching a pitch who is already cut upfield. And he's like, no, I'm going to catch this ball on the move so that I have enough force to get downhill. And he's so big and he's so strong and he has such great body control that when he is navigating those angles that open up for him to get to the basket, he is not only getting to where the opening is, but then he's strong enough to knock you off and make sure that if you're trying to get in front of him, you have no chance to slow him down and curb his momentum. So it's the cutting to me that he's probably one of the best cutters ever, but it's just like we don't think about him that way.
It illustrates just his mastery of basketball because how he came up was as the ultimate on-ball guy.
Yep.
And so he was the guy who was passing the ball and that's part of why he's so good at being a cutter, because he's applied that knowledge as a passer to, hey, if I come off this way or if I set him up this way, I'm going to be open to here and there's going to be a passing window available and all of that. But D, that's a totally different type of player. Like, he's dominating in a totally different type of way than how he came up. It's just an incredible mastery of the sport.
Well, it's also a part of the game that so many on-ball players have maybe earlier in their career, but not later. And the fact that it's persisted. So, like, for example, one of the criticisms I think that comes up on a James Harden or on a Russell Westbrook is that earlier on in their careers, they were much better at all of that off-ball movement stuff. Like Harden as a sixth man, or even when he first got to Houston, he was much more comfortable being an off-ball worker because those were the aspects of his game that he accessed way more often. And Russ was very similar. Like when he first came into the league, there were questions about whether or not he was going to be a point guard at all. And then he's playing with Kevin Durant. And then later on, he's playing with James Harden. And that ability to be an off-ball worker and cutter was something where it's just like, oh, look at the force that he plays with. But by the time he was in year 8, year 9, year 10, and the same is true for Harden, those guys weren't the same off-ball workers, and they were mostly standing still as the offense moved around them, and they leveraged their on-ball skills in order to be like the amazing offensive talents that they were. So I'm looking at LeBron late in these games, and yes, like the power drives and everything that he's doing with the ball in his hands is surreal and unreal. But some of his best plays are still cuts and how he runs the floor and getting that deep outlet pass and then dunking the ball because he's beating everyone up the court. And the freedom that playing with this many talented players allows of him to shapeshift between the on-ball guy, the off-ball guy, the guy who can still defend. His rebounding has been great. He was great against Germany, getting contested rebounds at the end of that game and drawing fouls in the process. That it's just the ultimate well-rounded ability to be great.
Mm-hmm. And just several different aspects of the game. Speaking of which, Anthony Davis, let's take a break, come back, talk about him.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
That well-roundedness is what I think of when I watch AD, and why I think he's a little bit underappreciated is that he's not the best at any one element of the game, but he's so high end at so many different elements of them that he's just this wonderful, complete player. And watching him around other talented players and sort of fitting into the game, I think is where he's at his most comfortable. And so defensively, that stat about how he's blocked more shots than everybody else combined. So much of the story has on the defensive end with this Team USA in the lead up has been the AD Bam crew off of the bench and how they combine. And Bam has handled a lot of those perimeter responsibilities, and obviously they can switch and do a lot of great stuff, but AD's been the monster around the rim. And that to me is more and more of the story of how AD is dominant, is as a blunt force object around the basket more than the kind of free running gazelle that he was in the title run. And so I think that that is key when you talk about him alongside LeBron, as we talk about our team building and, you know, how as Redick builds out the schemes going forward, is kind of where that fits in and where it doesn't.
Yeah, he's been rim running a fair amount too, and he's been great at getting to the offensive glass. Just to highlight your point about blocks, and these are stats pulled by the always amazing Genie, is AD's got 15 blocks. No other player even has 5. The next person in line is Drew Holiday with 3. AD's leading the team in total rebounds. he's been amazing. He's second in steals behind Ant. There's just so much that he's doing to help winning. And this is the thing that I want to continue to harp on when it comes to Anthony Davis is he is a winning player, and he is a guy whose influence on winning, he never really gets the credit for that. And I've always said this about AD is I think his most natural shape is as a number 2 player or even a number 3 player offensively, because when you look at what he can do defensively and in all of these other aspects of the game, if he were to just solely focus on that stuff, he would be maybe the best defensive player ever, or just his level of instincts and ability at that end of the floor are great. But he came in as a number 1 overall pick. Pete, he came in as someone who everyone knew how good he would be defensively and on the backboards, but the upside of him as a prospect was we think he could be a high usage offensive player, and he was groomed very early in his NBA career to be that number 1 option offensively, and he strived at that, like 25 plus points and just elite. But put him on this type of team, a team where he can benefit offensively from all of the great players around him, but then defensively truly be an anchor, and then leveraging his quickness, length, and size, and then now strength as he's aged in order to be a rebounder. His instincts for that stuff is elite. And it's just not the thing we often talk about with AD. There was a possession where he got an offensive rebound, and he had been tangling with Mo Wagner a bunch on both sides of the court. AD was at the left elbow, and I believe a shot went up from like the top of the floor or more from the right shoulder area. Before Wagner even looked back to track AD had already jab stepped one way, looped around him, established inside position, and then Wagner looked back almost to try to figure out where's AD, only to turn around and AD's in front of him, boxing him out, and then he's grabbing an offensive rebound. It's that sort of understanding and spirit for getting after the ball that I think is in AD's nature, but it's not something that he's always able to do as a Laker because his offensive lift is so high.
It's also, I think, the shape of the lineups in that oftentimes he's been the only big person that's there. And so one of the ability to free him up to guard on the perimeter, or that to me is what makes him so unique, is that most of the time, and one of the tensions in the NBA throughout the last 10 years has been our 5 is big, but he's too slow-footed to get out to a 3-point shooter or contest. And so that lacking in perimeter defense is one of the reasons why those guys get played off of the floor. AD is a 5 who's not only able to do that at a very high level, you can push him to the 4 and he can still do that. And so you could put another really big player next to him in ways that you can't on a lot of other teams. And so especially provided that player can move their feet. So this kind of goes back to yesterday's pod about, the type of bigs that you want to put next to him. But the overall point is that if you give AD a size advantage over a guy, if you give him a Mo Wagner, he's going to eat Mo Wagner's lunch if he's bigger than the guy's front court that they're across, or that's across from him, he's just going to really thrive. And so being able to put him in situations where that's not always going to be at the 5 position. He's not going to bully Jokic from a out-muscling standpoint. He can go around him and was great in that matchup in the first round of this year's playoffs. And so that to me is sort of, AD has some shape-shifting ability, but more and more his impact is around the rim rather than on the perimeter. And that's part of the reason why the talk of Redick wants to use him as an offensive hub is interesting to me. Is like, can that work if he's not hitting jumpers and all that? We've talked about that, but yeah, it's part of the equation.
We have. I will say that AD's looked more comfortable shooting his jump shot, but that's not necessarily what his role is even on this team. Mm-hmm. He is much more of the most elite garbage man you'll ever find in terms of what he's doing offensively.
Yes, and that's a lot of times where he's at his best. And so when you add that type of player up with LeBron, who we were talking about his abilities as a cutter and kind of the ability to flow on the ball or off of the ball, it creates an interesting shot creation burden that you normally don't have when you have two all-NBA level players on your team. And so that's part of the reason why when D'Lo isn't able to produce, it's really harmful for the team because we kind of fall below that even though we have LeBron and AD.
Yeah, it's also one of those things too, where what are the actions that you're using in order to optimize AD? And are you leaning so much more into the needs of the guards and how AD can help the guards rather than just giving AD the ball and saying, what can you do?
Let's pull that thread a little bit. Kerr's offense is very much aligned, I think, with the style of 5-out that I would expect us to start implementing. And so what are some of the actions and ways that you can resolve this problem using the system rather than just, I'm going to beat a guy off the dribble?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that Team USA is not doing as much is like the post entry and like split cut stuff that's off of the post. And one of the reasons why is because of the defenses that you can use in FIBA versus the types of defenses that you have to run in the NBA, right? There is no defensive 3 seconds in FIBA and the 3-point line is shorter. So it shrinks the floor and it's making closeouts towards 3-point shooters easier. And so that split cut stuff, you can sort of gum up the paint a little bit. And then when the ball kicks out, those closeouts are shorter. And so it's an interesting dynamic for that. One of the places that AD has been playing at a lot in the Team USA offense is they've been running the ball through him at the top of the court in a lot of delay actions. And you saw Germany really trying to take that away with ball denials up high. I'll be interested to see what counters Kerr starts to implement against that style of defense, because I think teams are going to scout that and they're going to say, we don't want you to reverse the ball this way, playing through AD, because shifting the defense that way and then letting him get into a screen and roll action or a DHO action is going to be actively harmful for opposing defenses. So I think one of the ways that we've seen AD play is a lot of that DHO game. He's been playing a lot from the top of the court and then not necessarily screening and rolling, but DHOing and slipping and then diving into the parts of the court that when Team USA's elite guard play, basically when it's Anthony Edwards or Steph Curry or Devin Booker, or even Jason Tatum, and those guys are turning the corner looking to get downhill or leveraging their pull-up jump shooting ability. AD is like slipping into the cracks and crevices of the defense, which he has elite feel for, and he's just getting entry passes that way or going to the offensive glass, and that's the style that he's been thriving in for this team. I have a hard time seeing that being all that he's going to do for the Lakers, though, right? Because his shot creation burden is going to be much higher than that.
You also have very different players coming off of those DHOs. Now, unless it's LeBron, but there's not that same level of power and speed from Austin and D'Lo coming off of that. It's more of a skill type of game. And so that to me is one of the, can you throw the ball into AD in the post and run actions off of that are going to create a choice for the defense of, I'm either going to have to collapse into the paint to deal with AD slipping into these crevices, or I've got to deal with somebody on the perimeter. And so I guess as I talk this through, I feel like we're missing a downhill guy to really make that work in a way where he can adequately slip into the cracks and crevices in a similar way. You know what I'm saying? That's also putting pressure in another area.
Yeah, the Lakers don't have those sorts of guards. I think what AD is going to have to do more of is I think he's going to have to shoot pick and pop jumpers more for a JJ Redick led team. But I'm also interested, Pete, in how much Redick values post offense as an avenue towards 5-out scoring. The Lakers do have smart guards who can cut well, who can screen well, and who can relocate well in order to get good offense for themselves. The way that you leverage an Austin Reeves or a D'Angelo Russell, who may not be as good at creating their own shot against tight defense, is put them off of the ball a little bit more, let them screen and cut while LeBron and AD hold the ball or look to post up and leverage their own individual gravity in order to either score for themselves or look for teammates who are worrying around in different parts of the court and opening themselves up.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk more about that style of offense. So that's sort of the book on the Lakers guards, is to crowd them, use your physicality and athleticism to get into them. And if you're running a ball screen style of offense, that can be very effective, or an on ball. But that is one of the ways. Goes back to Phil Jackson and well before, in terms of blind pig type of stuff, where if there's heavy ball denial, you want to have a pressure release and use that against them. And so moving them off the ball, if those same players that have said, hey, by strategy, we're going to really try to crowd D'Lo, we're really going to try to crowd Austin. If you've got the ball in AD or LeBron's hands in triple threat position, what that does is free up one-on-one space for them. So it's a matter of like, hey, this is a weakness that we have. We know that it's something that the defense is really going to try to attack us in this way and attack our guards in this way. How do we turn that into an advantage? And so that's why between that and one of the things I've loved seeing, and a friend texted me this while watching as well, was LeBron at the elbow or at the top of the key, just like hitting guys coming off of screens. It's so low stress on his body. It's good offense. It creates good looks. It uses his brain, which is a thing that you were talking about the other day, that's going to be the more often we can use LeBron's brain rather than his physicality throughout the course of 82 and let him pick his spots the better. And so that to me is one of the crucial points, like what you said, is how much does Redick value post offense? Because I think a lot can be accomplished there.
So I want to continue to pull on this thread with you, Pete. What have you seen from AD as a passer in order to really get Redick on board with this idea to whatever degree he might not already be, right? Because if you're going to optimize that triple threat stuff, the reason why it's called a triple threat is because one of those threats is passing. And so what have you seen from AD, especially over the last 18 months? Because I have my own idea about this, but I want to hear what you have to say.
So the DHO stuff, I haven't loved how he's navigated that. That's not triple threat, but when you were talking about that, I was like, we kind of tried to do that last year and it wasn't great. Now, I think there were things we could have done better, but I don't think it plays into his best abilities as a passer. I think where he's gotten the most reps is as a post-up player in the low post and in the mid post, where he can turn and face. And he had that one stretch of about 6 weeks over the course of this past season where he averaged like 5.5 assists per game, where we were playing through him a lot. And that to me is really the basis for how this can work in a way that the players that we have already sort of done this before, which I think is a great starting point. And so that ability to have, to me, it's about diving to the rim. Who else you have on the court? Like the Vando conundrum of, if you've got AD and Vando out there, what does the offense look like? But it's a matter of sort of like wave attacks on the rim that put enough pressure to open up the three ball. And so that's sort of where it starts for me.
Yeah, it's that stretch of the season that I think is most encouraging to me and opens up the idea of AD really reading the floor. He had a great assist to LeBron in the what the F set that Team USA runs that is ripped right from the Warriors playbook. And typically there's an inbound to a big, and then the ball is supposed to go to the second big that's on the other side, which would normally be Draymond, but in this case it was LeBron. And then what happens is after the big passes to the other forward, he then goes and sets a down screen for the weak side guard who's going to come up and look for a shot. But LeBron and AD had this beautiful connection where the inbound came to AD and LeBron popped out as if okay, well, here comes the second pass to me, right? Which is in that Draymond role. But LeBron basically shed his man and cut backdoor. AD hit him for a back cut and he got a dunk or a layup. Over the past 18 months or so, AD has been reading those sorts of actions much better. And he's had a really good connection with Rui. He's had a really good connection with Vando. And he's even had a good connection with D'Lo, particularly this past season, because D'Lo was one of the players who was setting a lot of ghost and back screen and flare screens for teammates and then cutting right to the front of the rim right off of that action. I think these sorts of sets can be staples for the Lakers, particularly on offense when LeBron is not in the game, and using AD that way rather than settling all the way into a screen and roll based offense where AD is trying to help the guards create off of the dribble for themselves, if that makes sense.
It does. And last season, one of the storylines in the fourth quarters was we didn't really have any. We are going to get AD the ball. And when we are in that mode of we're going to get AD the ball, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is what we do when the defense reacts this way. This is what we do when the defense reacts that way. But there was no very clear, like, this is what we do when AD gets the ball. That Redick's communicated some of that. That is part of the meat left on the bone of what this team could be.
Well, that goes into the reporting, right? That was talking about what Redick might want from an offense when he was in discussions about becoming the head coach at all, right? Which was like, I want to get AD the ball more in crunch time. I want to use him more in general. And also, I want to run more scripted offense. I want to run plays more, right? Like, I want to get into sets and actions rather than just letting these guys freelance as much as they did last season. And so those all point towards playing through AD a little bit more and having deliberate courses of action to play off of AD when he has the ball. LeBron is good enough to do whatever he wants. He is such an advanced thinker that you could hand him the ball. And if you have sets around him, that's only going to amplify his like supercomputer brain. But LeBron is also one of the smartest players ever at just sort of saying, give me the ball and then I'm going to direct traffic once I have the ball. And like Iman Shumpert has told great stories about like how he's like telling teammates, no, you go there, you go here, clear that side and come to this corner. I'm talking about LeBron here after he has the ball and he's then dictating the terms of engagement. There's not a lot of players in the world that can operate at that level in real time. A lot of players need the organization that a head coach can give them. And I'm hopeful that Redick can do some of that with AD in partnership with AD in order to not only help him as an offensive player, as a scorer, but help him be that hub of offense in order to facilitate scoring chances for the rest of the team.
One guy, as you were talking through that I think is a key figure in this is Dalton Connect. And how good he is, how soon, because he's a different type of player that in this style of more organized, more scripted, more that style of offense is really a type of player the Lakers haven't had, specifically with that level of size. And so how good he is, how soon, I think will determine a lot for a Lakers team. But the idea of Connect running around, because when you play this hub style of offense or play out of the post and triple threat, you need threats on the perimeter that aren't just standing in one place. When we think of AD post-ups over the last 5 years, a lot of them have been like, he's going to work and there's 4 other dudes standing in one spot. And that just has a floor, or that has a ceiling to it in terms of how good you can be on offense. But not a lot of guys can be real threats to score off of movement. And so I'm skeptical his level of like actual movement shooter, come off a screen and let it fly like Blake Hinson, for example. However, the ability to curl and get to the rack and pull up from mid-range, didn't shoot super well, but I think he's a guy that at some point in his career is going to score 20 a game, and how quickly he gets to that point is really going to tell a great story. And so specifically within this style of offense, his style of player is really important.
It totally is, and I'm glad that you highlighted Connect. A player I would pivot to as well is Max Christie. Christie is a very good downhill attacker, but he showed in Summer League last year that he could do that with on-ball reps against lower levels, but you put him at the actual NBA level and he was not nearly as effective at being able to do some of that. When we talk about some of the limitations that Austin or D'Lo might have as isolation players, that stuff applies to Max as well. But the thing about Max is when he gets downhill, he is so much more athletic and has an ability to finish at the rim with force that getting him in movement actions as well as a cutter. Imagine running split cuts with D'Angelo Russell and Max Christie, where both could hit a spot up 3 potentially, but also Max can get downhill. And if he gets a clean run, he's going to dunk on someone or pick up some fouls along the way, right? In terms of drawing contact at the rim. So I would include Max in that idea of how can you get the most out of perimeter players who can clearly do work off of the ball, can hit a jump shot. Christie, I think, is much more of a mid-range shooter as a movement guy. Like, he can come off curls and elevate and get his shot off. I think as a three-point shooter, he's much better off being a pure spot-up guy as like a swing guy or as a skip shooter. That said, get those guys moving on curls and going towards the basket. He can finish at the rim or he can pull up, and Max Christie is more than capable of hitting a 15-foot pull-up, even against a good contest. He shoots a high release ball, and he's got good positional size, and he's just a good athlete. Like, these are things that he can do as well.
All right, this was fun. If you want to support LFR, you can do so on our Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. We will be back tomorrow, talk some Kareem, but until then, you've been listening to Laker Film Room Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.
James has got it in low to McHale. McHale wants to turn. He's double teamed. Just pass out in front. Broken up by Worthy. Tip to Magic. Worthy dies on his belly. Magic scores.
There's Magic got it. Magic fires again. They will. Lakers win the game. The Lakers win the game. Rebound is Lonnie. 3 seconds left. Van Exel to win it. It's on the way. Good.
Kobe Bryant, 48 points, 16 rebounds. Shaq with his 8th block shot that ties an NBA Finals record.
A lot of Laker fans sticking around for this.
You're seeing something that's very rare indeed. A Laker to get MVP chance
in Boston. Of all places.
Are you kidding me?
Kobe, hard to believe.
Are you kidding me? Unreal. Are you kidding me?
Lakers looking to push. Bryant spinning in the lane. Back for Gasol. Pretty pass. And it's back to a 3-point game.
Kobe Bryant picked up by Bell.
There's the move. 2, 1.
Miss it. Unbelievable. For the victory. It's over.
Shot clock now to 5. Bryant. Yes. And that was a little tap to Alvin Gentry.
Add insult to injury, Kobe. I mean, what a shot. I mean, you can't defend that. Are you kidding me? 2.1 seconds remaining. Denver a foul to give. Jokic trying to disrupt Rondo. He puts it in. Here's Davis, 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good! Anthony Davis has won it for the Lakers! James again. Oh, he hits another one. LeBron James putting together a closing quarter against the Nuggets. This historic 2020 NBA championship belongs to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers conquer the bubble, and banner number 17 will soon hang in the rafters.